So my friend texts me, season 2, Kaiju number 8, it's coming out today. I go home, and I'm like, all right, I guess it's time. Start the first episode, hooked instantly. This show was both creative, it was kind of scary at times, it was hilarious at times, lovable characters, and most of all, in a season 1, maybe not most of all, actually, but the story building is incredible. Not too many knocks against the show. I'm far from saying, it's a perfect season. I always say season 1 of Vinland Saga is my favorite season of anime, and this is nowhere near on that level, but would I watch this again? 100% a great show. So we'll dive into a few things. I think we're going to, talk about the show's concept. We'll talk about the characters. Most of them, I kind of love them, like almost all of them. Then the villains we'll get into, which are so sick in this show. And then lastly, what's next? As I'm sure many of you will know what's coming next, but we'll talk about from my perspective as someone who just finished season 1, ran through it, and is about to start season 2, hopefully, once I'm done pressing record. Once I press the stop record button, I will start season 2. But without further ado, let's dive right into it. This show, I feel like, it's so different, it's so unique, while also being able to, take from, other anime. I'm not, trying to say this is one of the greatest anime ever. It's far from that. But it was a really good season. The concept of this show is monsters and then people taking them down. It reminded me a lot of Attack on Titan, the way they took down those Titans, except these monsters aren't as scary as the Titans. They're still scary. These are called Kaiju. And there's 2 teams that kind of, take down the Kaiju. There's the defense team, and then there's the cleanup team, and you start with the MC, and he's Kafka Hibino, and he is part of the cleanup team. And he is pretty much, doing everything you can think of when, trying to clean up a Kaiju. And so you realize that the cleanup team is a tough job. It's a hard job, and it's a terrible job a lot of the times. But, that's where the humor comes in. I love that group, the cleanup group. You gotta, guys, kind of, I guess, gotta have fun with it. But then the other side of it is the defense force, and that's where, these are the guys who take down the Kaiju. They put their lives on the line. But all you see is them kind of like aura farming to start off the show. But you're with Kafka the whole time. And this guy's a 33-year-old who's, way past his prime, but his prime apparently wasn't good either because he's been trying to get into the defense force for a long time. Instead, he's on the cleanup crew. And what I love about the show is that the MC is an old man. Okay, 33 is not terrible, but very rarely do we not get like that young kid who's trying to be something in the world. This guy gave up, and so I thought just the concept of him as the main character was really cool, really fun to get behind. And while at the beginning I might have forgotten that he was so old, towards the end of the season, everybody calls him Old Man. So he is, you get that very clear that he is the old man. But yeah, and then that kind of introduces his sidekick Ichikawa, and who convinces him, to try out for the defense force for his final time. But then Kafka Hibino actually eats a kaiju, or one of those monsters, and it almost looks like it chose him. And then later on in the season, you see them kind of like talk to each other, like later on in the season. So it was interesting, and one thing that I will definitely get back into at the end when we talk about what's next for him, but the way he became a kaiju, because Kafka now becomes a kaiju with this, and he's kaiju number 8. Most of the kaiju are just like monsters they take down, but the specifically, interesting humanoid type ones, it doesn't always have to be a humanoid, but usually someone who's just like a kaiju above the rest, and they name him the 8th, kind of scariest kaiju. And Ichikawa understands that Kafka is scared. They're both kind of in the same boat, so they keep it a secret. Then you get to their training, because now they got into the defense force, like tests and stuff. And then they get into the training. You realize Kafka is not that good at anything, but he knows the ins and outs of kaiju. And this is where he kind of, shows that off, and shows it that he's not just, cleaning out their intestines and stuff. He knows, what to do in a lot of those situations where, guys who are just there to attack, don't really know. So fast forward, that's where we introduce Hikaru Shinomiya, and she is a badass character, and she's like 15 years old, and she's running it in these tests, and she's by far the best one, and that's where actually a humanoid Kaiju number 9 comes into play, attacks Shinomiya, and then that's where Kafka has to use his Kaiju ability. Instantly, Shinomiya is saved, and then they kind of go from there. And then, they make the team and everything, but he's still, the weakling of the squad. And then all of a sudden, a really crazy Kaiju comes into play, and then the Kaiju who, jumped into the exam, he's actually, pretending to be one of the cleanup guys, and he is just such a sick character. We're going to get into it when I talk about the villains. But yeah, so then there's a coordinated attack, long story short, and I mean, I'm explaining to people who probably know the show and everything, but this is just from my perspective. Feel free to comment below if I'm like messing up any of these timelines, but there's a coordinated attack from the Kaiju, something never seen before, and you just see some of the strongest Defense Force members, going at it here. But in the end, a massive bomb comes through. Kafka has to turn into his Kaiju, shows it to everybody. Because at that point, you find a Kaiju, you either kill it, you take it in, that his life's never going to be the same anymore, So he saves the day. Still, everyone arrests him, and he emotional, like the most emotional moment. And this is the reason why I'll remember the season for a long time, because the characters, no one like incredibly memorable, but when they come together, like the Defense Force 3rd Unit, 3rd Division is just a squad that like you just love, you want to get behind. And so they all, Ichikawa steps out and says, "We'll be here for you, Kafka," and everybody looking distraught. Then he gets put inside, and he gets locked up by Mino Ashido. I haven't even dived into Mina Ashido's character and how important she plays in this. She is like pretty much the leader for 90% of the show. You think like she's in charge, and she's a great character as well. So I'll dive into that in a little bit. But yeah, so he's now captured, and you kind of go into season 2 after so Hikaru Shinomiya's dad is Isao Shinomiya. Her dad is the man in charge of the whole thing in the country that they live in. And, she kind of pleads, said he saved her. But you find out that their mom actually, or, Hikaru's mom died because of a Kaiju. So the two of them, have beef with Kaiju. They have a history there. And then you also realize that Isao is just one of those classic anime dads who's just pushing their kid to be the best and not really giving them that love that clearly they're missing out on. But yeah, it was just a really, really good watch and really good concept with that, because what you find out with this battle with Isao between Kafka is Kafka's in this chamber, and he's kind of like locked up, and he doesn't want to fight anybody, but Isao kind of pushes on him. So Isao, starts beating him up and everything, and then he takes out a weapon that was from the Kaiju number 2, and then and that's when Kafka's like memory was like, we have to kill that. It's a Kaiju. So that's where even another level of it, like what is Kafka's role in this whole thing? Because he's now going to fight this thing to the death. And so they both go at it, and in the end, Kafka, before he's about to kill the dude, punches himself to knock him out. And now you're left wondering what they're going to do. They actually get the whole board disapproves of letting Kafka live, except for Isao. And Isao stands up to them and says, you know what? He's going to live. He's going to be on our side. And as of now, we don't know if they're telling the public. But that's what I'm so excited. They left the door open for so many opportunities. I think season 2 is going to be so sick. There's so much for us to learn. So I kind of talked about Kafka. The MC, he's not the most memorable MC, but he's just a guy who, has an incredible heart. He's there to save everybody. He's going to work the hardest out of anybody, and he's going to, try to prove you wrong. But he does need a little motivation. He needs a little bit of friendship in his life. Then you go into Rinu Ichikawa, who's an awesome sidekick. When Kafka was down and out at the trials or the testing site, Ichikawa stepped in, saved the day. He's the one who pushed him to even try for this. He's the one who stepped out when Kafka got arrested and was like, you know what, we can't wait for you to come back. Ichikawa, a legendary character, and it's only season 1, and he's not even like top 3 probably best in the show. But he's a legendary character, legendary sidekick. Then you go to Kikuro Shinomiya, and at first you're kind of like, she's a brat, she's a know-it-all, but she's just so badass in this show. And then once you get to know her, she's so nice. And then also her history with Isao. She's going to be tough. She's a great leader on the field. She has a lot of trust in a lot of people, and she's a loyal person at the end of the day. I love Shinomiya. Then Mina Ashido. Here's the first character that I did not like in the show, at least for the first 10 episodes. Mina Ashido is clearly the leader of this defense force, and I love the 3rd Division. And I loved her being a strong, female lead character who's kind of running the show. But at first, she was kind of a jerk to Kafka, who they apparently were childhood friends growing up. And you see flashbacks from Kafka kind of saying, if you go, I go, we're not going to go without each other. But there were times where Kafka and Mina throughout the show would see each other, and Kafka would be like, hey, bestie, and Mina Ashido would literally ignore him or make him do push-ups. And so I was so I kind of hated her because I felt like she was being a jerk to Kafka in a sense. But no, she actually, I think, just she's a leader in that place, and she has to know she can't play favorites and stuff like that. And she's trying to prove to all these guys, well, you think she's the leader in charge, then you see the table, the panel, and it's just all guys there, which kind of was like, dang, what is this? But Mina stood up to them and was like, no, this is why. It's not because he's my friend or anything like that. It's because he has the biggest heart. And yeah, she gives that speech, and not only that, what she said to Kafka when he spoke, when he was chained down and arrested, she said, nobody in the 3rd Division thinks you're guilty. No, we know you're human. And that was just wow. So she was just doing her job, and that's tough. But when she needed to, she let him know, we got your back, and love her. Now here might just be my favorite character, and I think we can all agree we didn't necessarily love him to start off, and that is Soshiro Koshina. So Soshida is this Levi Attack on Titan kind of character. He's got these 2 swords, and he just messes people up. He's so unbelievable. You see his moves and stuff, and the way he attacks. At first, he takes advantage. He looks like he's kind of taking advantage, or he's laughing at people's expenses. But he just loves the game, bro. He loves the game, and he loves believing in people, because he is the reason Kafka even joined the 3rd Division in the first place. And so just such a sick character when you find out he's the reason he's there. He put his faith into Kafka, and then they go toe to toe. Kafka's Kaiju number 8. And Soshido's got his blades out, and they go to battle. Kafka eventually escapes, because that's his goal in the end of it. And then Soshido, he's just such a cool character. And then he just believes in people, at the end of the day. And he's fair when it comes to, the tough lifestyle of what it means to be in the 3rd Division. I don't think I really need to go into Isao Shinomiya, but you don't really like him as a father, but then you're kind of he did believe his daughter, and then told Kafka. But everybody's trying to making mistakes along the way. He's just a tough dad who really doesn't show his daughter love, which is terrible. But he also seems like he is the most understanding on the board of panel. So at the end of the day, you can't hate him that much. Or I guess maybe you could. I don't want to go into every character in the show, but the cleanup crew, just so funny, and every time they could pop up on the screen, I know I'm going to have a laugh. The 3rd Division, once that everybody tested kind of, and once they got in, that is just such a fun crew. You see them have each other's back the whole way through. You see them motivating each other. They got funny moments. They got badass moments. And yeah, at the end of the day, it is just some really cool characters that you can get behind, but you don't remember anyway. And I think it's a mix of like they all got long names. It's not like, oh, Naruto, Levi, you know, they got long names, and you know, gotta learn all of them. I think the villains might be one of the best parts of the show. Not too many villains to get into, but just the unknown of the villains, where they come from, you know, their motives at all, because you see some that are kind of just like going out of their, just doing whatever, and then there's some intelligent ones. You see that even Kaiju number 9, who is just so intimidating, is so strong, so knowledgeable, and is blending in with humans. But you also see doesn't understand why um, Kafka's Kaiju number 8 is fighting against him. So he doesn't know about humans that might have turned into Kaiju, who would be fighting, you know, against the Kaiju. So there is some interestingness in that. Like, we don't really know what the Kaiju know, and it seems like they don't really know that much. Um, but at the end of the day, Kaiju number 9 carries, with just what he was able to do. Kaiju number 10, well, you know, he gets beat. He was just so intimidating. And then you see Kaiju number 2, who kind of like started out like it was, of course, at the beginning, and that took a village to take down. The villains are both like eerie looking because they're humanoids, but they're so scary looking. And the way they attack, like having like the whole thing pop out of his finger and shoot at the person. Oh my gosh. Um, but yeah, and then there were some ginormous kaiju's as well, which like kaiju number 10 turned massive, and yeah. So the villain's cool. Not a lot to talk about there, but that's what I think the next season will unlock for us. Um, Another thing is the world building, and this kind of goes into, you know, what this leaves the door open to. But I would love to know the history of the kaiju. There's still so much to dive into with that. You know, that they mentioned, you know, other countries are doing tests with kaiju. Like, we don't even know the other countries, whether it's their defense force or what types of kaiju, you know, they go up against. That's a really unknown aspect of it as well. And you know what happens with Kafka, and what's Kafka's role in all this? Because clearly the kaiju don't know what his motives are. The humans don't really know what his motives are. Kafka and Ichikawa both know that they're gonna, you know, they're trying to stand with the humans. But you know, there was a moment in that battle against Isao Shinomiya where, you know, Kafka lost control. You know, he could destroy a human, but it also seemed like it was led because he was using the Kaiju number 2's weapon, so, or a weapon from Kaiju number 2, like bane out of him. So really unknown with all of that, and that's what it kind of leaves the door open to in season 2. I didn't read the manga, so I don't know what happens, as I'm sure some of you might have read the manga. We don't even know where kaiju come from. That's also another thing that probably is going to dive into some point, or you know, how they appear. It seems like something's happening where more and more are coming out now, so I'd love to know who else is in the defense force. We're only looking at the third division. We clearly saw Isao, who is one of the strongest, if not the strongest. We don't really know. We also saw, you know, Soshida, who was just so good, but he was the vice in the third division. So where, you know, are the other defense force members? And I'd love to see them in action. Are they smart? Is any of them secretly, you know, a kaiju? And then the table of leaders, like, you know, how did they get up to that point? Were they all defense force members? And you know, yeah, what's Esao's history like as well? So there's a lot left to happen. And I think we're only just beginning here with this show. Hopefully we're just beginning. And the binge was so worth it. Such an easy binge. A nice little 12 episodes to get through in season 1, and some fun characters to watch along with it. So hopefully you are starting season 2. Let me know if I should do a season 2 recap. I clearly won't be able to do the binge, so I'll have to take, I guess, notes so I remember. Or, you know, if it's anything like the Solo 2 or JJK's recent seasons, I'll just be able to watch episodes like 5 times over before the next one comes out. Well, appreciate you guys watching, and talk to you soon. Peace.